Elena Kagan, rather, says the majority should explain. So recently, the last couple weeks, the Supreme Court, by the way, every time Trump gets to the Supreme Court, he wins. Every time. Contrary to the will and the arguments of these lower courts. But the last couple of weeks, they've been issuing wins for Trump simply by saying, all right, we hear the arguments, Trump wins. Next, Trump wins. Next, Trump wins. Next. And they're not doing lengthy explanations. The majority's not. So the majority is saying, usually by 6-3, 7-2, the majority is saying, all right, well, in this case, Trump wins. Trump wins. Trump wins. Trump wins. Trump wins. And then Justice Sonia Wise Latina DEI Sotomayor writes an 18-page dissent, which of course carries no precedential value. The dissent is the losing side of the Supreme Court. Sotomayor writes an 18-page dissent, or Supreme Court Justice Ketanji, I'm not a biologist, how would I know what a woman is? Jackson writes an 18-page dissent, and then Elena Kagan joins those other two shrews in the dissent. That's how we get these 6-3 decisions. And Elena Kagan is saying, wait a minute, the majority is simply saying Trump wins, Trump wins, Trump wins, but they're not providing a detailed explanation for why Trump wins. We're providing a detailed package of estrogenic hysteria in our dissents. Why do they only get to write one sentence and we have to write 20 pages? Well, you don't have to write the 20 pages. Justice Kagan, do us all a favor. We're tired of reading your trash. I am. But here's the interesting part. In the decision we're going to look at today, the Supreme Court did provide an explanation for why Trump won. And you know what the lower court did? It pretended the explanation had never been provided. It just ignored it. So what was the purpose of that? If the majority decision in the Supreme Court is going to provide an explanation, this is why Trump wins. That's, by the way, supposed to be guidance for these lower courts to follow in similar cases moving forward. This is how we want you to make these decisions, is what the Supreme Court is saying when it provides this guidance. If the lower courts are just going to ignore it, why should the Supreme Court bother? And by the way, when the Supreme Court provides that guidance and the lower court doesn't do it, this is not a child with his hand in a cookie jar. This is a federal judge. If he can't follow simple direction from his bosses on the Supreme Court, what would happen to you if that were you in that job, engaged in that kind of insubordinate conduct? You think you'd keep your job?